All right, Moyen. So let's talk about your Steel Amber list. This is a list that is very, very popular on ladder right now, and I think a lot of players have settled on this as being the best list. Maybe not the best list overall. Ruby, Amethyst does compete with it, but probably more of a deck you'll face in paper rather than on ladder. Ladder seems to be pretty much Steel Amber all the way. There's a lot of ways to build the deck. So I just want to start by breaking down yours here. So let's just go down the list. I mean, the first inclusion you have here is there's a bit of a dichotomy, I think, between the lists, like the Lilos. I see some lists run without the Lilos, some lists run with it. So Lilo Simba, obviously a very powerful early game sort of combo. Just talk to me a little bit about the lower end of your curve here.
So Lilo Simba can basically run away with any game going first, and then it's not, other than that, it's not a one-drop that you need to play on one. It's just whenever you need to threaten for a lot of quest, or for a lot of lore points, then it's an efficient way to do so, just spending one resource on threatening to quest. And this is basically something that helps you improve the purple-red matchup. Also, you need to be threatening a lot of quest early before they can board wipe you over and over again.
Yep. Definitely. The Lilo is one of those cards, like you said, maybe more for the Ruby Amethyst matchup. In the mirror, how do you utilize the Lilos because of the prevalence of Tinkerbell, right? People using Shift Tink on turn 4, potentially clearing one Lilo or multiple Lilos. Do you find yourself mulliganing away from this card in that matchup?
Basically, on ladder, usually you don't know what matchup you're queuing, right? So you can't really mulligan for the matchup. But going first, I tend to keep it, and going second, I tend to just throw it away.
What about the stitches? So it looks like I can already see here, obviously 2 Captain Hooks. Why have you opted to play more Stitch rather than the Captain Hook Prince Eric package?
I value a lot in my early game that it can effectively quest, and Captain Hook and Eric are very bad at just getting thrown onto the board and questing because they always get traded down. So basically, you only play them to be defensive, and I like to get ahead early game and not just have cards on the board that you can't use, and then you go into the stalled situation where neither player is questing because then the other player would have the good trades. So the only reason I am including a couple of Captain Hooks is I like to mulligan for them when going second, so my opponent cannot run away with the game if they go Lilo into Simba. So I like having the option, but more often than not, I will either not keep them, or if I end up having both Stitch and Hook in my opening hand, I prefer to play Stitch early and just ink the Hook.
All right, what do you think about these Lanterns? I know Lantern is a card that you maybe more traditionally see in the heavy Stitch Rockstar list, the more aggro list. Do you find that Lantern just complements this deck well, and do you consistently get enough value out of it, considering it is a non-inkable card?
Lantern is a weird one, because the highs of it are very high, but sometimes it can feel useless, or not useless, but it can feel lackluster even when you have it turn 2. So I don't even keep it all that often, but in every hand where you're doing fine value-wise, if you get like a Surfer Stitch off, or wait, where's the Hades? Okay. If you get a Surfer Stitch off, or in any hand where you're going to a whole new world, it's just a 2-cost ramp, and it's just very efficient because you just get ahead both on board. You get to dump your hand faster than your opponent, and then you go a whole new world, and you even have more resources than them post whole new world.
Let's talk about this 3-drop slot. You have the 4 Ariels, which is very standard. I think it's in pretty much every Amber Steel list at this point, as well as the Tinkerbell. I mean, Tinkerbell shifting into the 6-cost Tinkerbell for 4 resources seems to be one of the most prevalent plays you can make with this deck. So these slots, I feel like they're pretty much locked in the 3 slot. But moving on to the 4 slot is where it gets a bit spicy. You are running the traditional 4 Rapunzel, a card that can draw you a lot more cards, get you a lot of value, especially in the mirror, but you're also running 4 Cinderella. Talk to me a little bit about that decision specifically.
Sure, but after that I need to talk about Tinkerbell, because for me Tinkerbell is actually not locked.
Okay.
But Cinderella is... there's 2 reasons I'm trying for her at the moment. She's very versatile. She can quest for 2, doesn't die easily. So in the mirror, you often need lots of HP, so your stuff doesn't just die to a combination of Tinkerbells and Grab Your Swords. So 5 HP is very valuable. It can be Rapunzeled very well. And occasionally, she also helps you cheating out a 5-cost song. So, and the other reason I like this card is not just that it's versatile in a lot of things, it's also that with this deck, if you go land turn on 2, it's kind of nice to have a 4-drop that's actually good on turn 3. So she's pretty good for that.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, let's talk about the Tinkerbell. I think Tinkerbell is seen as one of the most powerful things that Steel can be doing in Lorcana right now. So talk to me about why it might not be locked in your list for the 4 and 4.
Basically, I've played this deck a lot, and I don't end up playing 3-cost Tinkerbell a lot. And it's basically because the matchups where you would need, or where shifting the 6-cost Tinkerbell onto a 3-cost Tinkerbell would be good, are kind of easy anyways, even without the 3-cost Tinkerbell. So it might just not be needed. So I love the 6-cost Tinkerbell, but the 3-cost Tinkerbell might not be a 4-off, and I haven't decided yet on if you actually want this card and how much, but it is decent for sure.
Yeah, and I think on ladder right now, you'll find a lot of people, especially at the high ranks, playing around that turn 4 shift Tinkerbell. If you have the untapped Tinkerbell on board, sometimes maybe, you could argue maybe the threat of it is powerful enough, but you will see a lot of opponents play around it and sort of prevent themselves from getting 2-for-1s, which can happen. Tinkerbell kills something, then ping something for 2 damage. People are very aware of this combo right now. All right, talking about some of these other cards, Moyen. Beast is a card that can be critical in that Ruby Amethyst matchup. Does clear items. Looks like you've opted for 3. Just talk to me a little bit about that card. Do you find yourself inking that card in most matchups, and then it's just a good toolbox card in your deck when you do face those Ruby Amethyst lists?
Yeah, it's just a very I don't know how to say it. So basically, it's somewhat of a tech card, right? And tech cards have very little cost if they're inkable. And even when you just need to play any 5-drop that can sing songs, and it also quests for 2, it's not that bad, even if it doesn't banish an item. Also for the Tinkerbell, I think in Normalist it will be more important to have Tinkerbell, but in every game where I go a lantern on 2, or maybe 2 lanterns in the first 3 turns, I also don't want to waste an entire card on cheating something out when I'm already able to play Tinkerbell kind of early.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, on to another spicy card in this list. I know there are a few Amber Steel lists that do include this card, but usually not the 4 copies. This is Cerberus, the 5-drop. I know you love this card, so just tell me why you like this card so much.
You wouldn't guess it. Let's say you first start with Lorcana. If you look at this card, you wouldn't know how strong it was, but it's one of my favorite cards in the deck. You play this card, and okay, to be fair, against Purple Red, it doesn't do a lot. It costs 5, only quests for 1, gets removed by the same stuff, doesn't pressure a lot, doesn't do a lot. But in the mirror, this is an absolute unit of a card. This doesn't die to, even if your opponent goes double grab your sword Tinkerbell, it doesn't die. It doesn't die to anything. You can quest with it. What's your opponent going to do? They can't just trade 6 damage into it. So you can just quest with this every turn, and every time there's any exerted card from your opponent, you are threatening to trade into it and Rapunzel for up to 3 card draw. So this card's just completely ridiculous in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like the Yeti from the original Hearthstone set. It kind of feels like it's that card, but in Lorcana. Just really good stats, and this body that, if you're playing mostly mirrors on ladder, so hard to contest. People are often 2-for-1ing themselves into this card. They're trading something, then maybe they cast a smash, which, by the way, for you is going to be a huge win if they 2-for-1 into it. Just a fantastic body. That 5/6 is just so strong. All right, next you have the 4 Grab Your Swords, which is, I think it's just standard to have 4 in the list. If there's not, you can stop me and we can talk about it a little bit more. But I want to talk about A Whole New World. So A Whole New World, it's a very interesting card, right? It's a symmetrical effect, so it draws your opponent's cards at the same time. So you need to be positioning yourself in a way that you can utilize A Whole New World and get more value than your opponent, or at least be ahead on board, right? Because the last thing you want to be doing is behind on board. Your opponent's questing, and you're trying to stick a body, and then you cast A Whole New World, and you fill their entire hand. Just talk to me about why you have 2 and how you utilize this card.
I only have 2 basically because the card has anti-synergy with itself. It's not even inkable, so every time you have multiple whole new worlds in your hand, that's usually a bad sign. But it's very strong because this deck can sing it very easily. If you ever pay 5 resources for this, you're already sad. But if you can sing for this and then develop behind it, it leaves your opponent in a very bad spot. Because most decks can't properly just answer your board, and if they do, you just like redevelop. And basically, this deck is very good if it has access to a lot of cards. I think it's better than most decks. So I know the true meta decks would be purple red and this deck, but if you're facing any other deck, for example, them using their 7 cards and you using your 7 cards, you will always end up on top because their only option usually is to flood the board, and your option is to like flood the board plus clear theirs with Grandmaster Swords and Tinkerbells.
Yep, that seems like what makes Amber Steel so powerful right now is that not only is it somewhat aggressive and is able to pressure the board, quest for a lot, but it also just like inherently clears the board. You're just inherently singing costs for free with your 3 cost Ariel, your 4 cost Cinderella, and your Tinkerbell is also pinging things, also getting the trigger and hitting something for 2. It's just like, honestly, this deck feels like it absolutely counters everything that is not the mirror. It is not Ruby Amethyst. I mean, you could make an argument maybe some of the combo decks would be okay against it, but overall, if someone cues an aggressive deck into you, I feel like this deck is so favored. So favored. I want to talk about some of the last slots here. So you have 4 Stitch Surfer and 1 Stitch Rockstar. So Stitch Surfer, obviously a very powerful top end to draw more cards, refill that hand. Why have you opted for the 1 Stitch Rockstar, and is this a card you're considering of putting more of them into the deck?
Yeah, I actually played this deck a lot with 4 Rockstar Stitches, and it ended up being a bit clunky. But basically, there are situations where Stitch is absolutely insane, and they don't happen all that often, but it's very good to have that option to sometimes either run away with the game, for example, which is what I call the Rockstar curve, is where you go like either first or second, but first off course better. You go Stitch into Lantern, and then you shift the Rockstar Stitch on turn 3, and then you can just flood the board. So I was playing a version earlier where I had like 4 Rockstar Stitch, and then 4 Stitch, 4 Goons, and I was just flooding the board with 2/2s. But that ended up not being all that strong because the mirror became more popular. But it's just another way to not run out of resources and by keep using them efficiently.
Anything to say in regards to Stitch Surfer, or is it just pretty straightforward as one of the most powerful things you can be doing sort of all the top end when you have characters on board? The one thing about Stitch Rockstar I will say is that, you know, your opponent can try to play around it. You know, as we go into turn 7, they can try to control your board. Maybe they do use a smash to target removal one of your creatures, so you only have one, you don't get the draw effect.
Oh, you meant
is there any...
Stitch.
Yeah, Surfer Stitch. Is there any nuance to this card, or do you think it's just, you know, slam it on turn 7 when you have the 2, this is like the most powerful thing you can do?
I slam it on turn 5 with 2 lanterns, and it's even more
True. Yeah, even more powerful.
I guess sometimes it is correct to just jam it on the board as a 4, like in the mirror. If you don't have 2 cards, it can be okay sometimes to just jam it anyways, and just keep questing for 2. Other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about it. It is one reason why Amber is so strong, because it gives card draw, which is very rare in this game.
Yeah, all right. Before we head into the gameplay, I just want to quickly get your thoughts on this deck's matchup spread currently in the meta. How do you feel this deck does into the mirror, right? So other steel Amber decks, how does it do into Ruby Amethyst, the hyper control list? And how do you feel like it does into everything else? I kind of loop everything else together because you tend to really just see like aggro decks, I feel like Emerald, Lemon Lime, you know, Emerald aggro decks, or you might see some Sapphire decks. How do you feel the matchup spread is into those archetypes?
I think this deck is extremely good in the mirror because of, I mean, that's a lot of the deck is built for the mirror with the 4 Cinderella, 4 Cerberus, where they can't really handle this high HP. Against red purple, this deck can struggle a little bit. It needs to try to pressure very early, and then once like the more quests you get early, the better. And then once you go into turn 7, you stop playing into the board, because usually going into into your turn 6, you're already ahead. So basically, you don't commit more resources into their first board clear. Then you threaten the board enough that they have to have second board clear. And then you win against only one board clear. Against 2, it can be rough, but if you get enough quests off early, you can get the last few quests in over like the course of the game, because it does take them some time to get to 20 themselves. So
into the aggro decks, it's very, very favored.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. It's kind of hard. Even if you try, it's kind of hard to lose against aggro.
Yeah, feels like it fundamentally counters it, huh?
One deck I want to give a shout out to that can be tough to beat is some blue variants, like blue-yellow or blue-gray. I've actually lost to a couple of times, where they ramp early, and then sometimes you will be in a spot where they have more resources and maybe you can't a whole new world, because they will out-grind you after the whole new world because they already have more resources. And then if you don't do it, if they draw enough of the 7-cost Hades, they can efficiently get rid of your Rockstar, your Surfer Stitch, and then also quickly threaten to end the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that speaks to the power of some of the lower end curve here with the Lilos being able to sort of go under some of those blue decks that try to ramp on you. Because like you said, if you do cast something like a whole new world, or if you're just dragged into a longer game, the Sapphire decks tend to be able to outvalue you in the long run.
Yeah, plus the way they develop is not by going wide, where you can actually answer it efficiently with Grab Your Sword Tinkerbells. They actually play a few units that are also hard to remove with the tools that Orange Grey has.
Yep, those pesky 6 bodies like the Cerberus. All right, Moyen. Well, let's without further ado, let's head into the games. All right, so into game 1, looking at the mulligan here. I mean, you're going second, so just talk to me about some of the things that are going through your head as you mulligan.
Sure. So basically, going second, Stitch is the one drop we're looking for. Simba is actually not important. Like, we only have 2 drops, Lantern and Simba, and they're both not high priority going second. Lantern's okay, but keeping it can be troublesome, because if you end up having
make sure you click confirm, by the way, because if you don't click confirm, you will get no mulligan. I've been here before. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I know. And also there's no timer, right?
There's no timer. You will just have no mulligan.
Yeah.
All right. So, seeing the Sapphire card inked and then Pick Your Brain played, what are some of the things that are going through your mind in terms of what deck you might be playing against, and does it change your strategy at all?
Not yet. It might. I mean, I don't have options yet, anyways. Basically, if I had Lilo here, I would probably still play Stitch, because they usually go the 2-cost 1/1, and it's nice to be able to continue questing instead of just questing for 2 once and then they trade into it if they go turn 2 the 1/1. Okay, so basically now first decision is what do we quest. We're going to go Lantern turn 2, and then probably Cinderella turn 3. And then I don't know, sometimes the aerial can feel weird because it's still a very good play, but you don't have the exact resources for it sometimes.
Yeah. Bit awkward on the curve when you could instead cheat out the 4-cost faster.
Yeah. I probably want to cheat out Cerberus turn 4, so I think I'm just using the Beast here.
Yep, and our opponent hasn't really shown us a color yet that Beast would be super important in. Obviously Sapphire does have some items, for the lore increasing item.
The thing is, the ramp item that they have, you don't care about removing at that point. And then there's the one that gives +1 quest, which is fine to remove, but even then, it's not really the end of the world to leave it. Okay, so we do have the Rockstar curve.
We do. And our opponent has shown us that they are on Ruby as well. They did ink a Maui, a 5-cost Maui.
Which is probably the reason we are not going to do the Rockstar curve, because I hate this getting dragon-fired when you invest this much into it. So we're going turn 3 either Cinderella or Ariel, turn 4 Cerberus, and then I think this you often you ink the Surfer Stitch, but I think this game there's enough reason in keeping it. So I might actually ink the Rockstar.
Yeah, I think Rockstar Stitch as well can be quite weak to be prepared, right? Because you do inherently go wide on the board with the Rockstar Stitch, so you just...
I wouldn't say that's an issue, because Rockstar Stitch is good at going wide, like, while not really using your resources.
You're right. Refilling the hand, right?
There's Aladdin. So we have to be mindful of the shifter Aladdin.
Yep, shift 5 Aladdin. Can be a big tempo swing.
So this is only in... Basically, this is the best song that's inkable that you can put in your deck. Because sometimes you will actually use this instead of inking it, and it's kind of decent. But most of the time this will also just be inked. They already ramped quite a bit. So I'm not that inclined to just search for a whole new word. So I think I'll just drop the Cinderella.
Yep, that makes sense. I know some people, when they play Ariel, they're searching for another inkable card, sort of like the one you just inked, find a song. But, casting a whole new world like we talked about during the deck tech against an opponent that is ramping and has access to more resources than you, and potentially even fewer cards, can lead to a situation where you will be outvalued.
Yeah, because that's the biggest problem of the blue deck, that it often gets ahead in ink while getting behind in cards, and then we would be playing exactly into their weakness if we did that. Okay, so this is something I wouldn't really recommend. I think you have to be very mindful of Rapunzel. And also, you're no longer
no shift Aladdin, you're right.
Even if you don't have it, you don't need to do this play, because I could still be scared of it. So basically, if they wouldn't have quested, I would have played Cerberus, and then which would have showed how good Cerberus is, because even if they shift trade, I just trade, it's a 5-1, and then I draw 3. But now it's not even necessary, because they did a suboptimal play, I think. I definitely take this trade, even if it's quest 2. And then I still have the option to just go Cerberus anyways, because this isn't really... the only way this is dying is to Maui. I don't know why they quested Maui. There's a lot of questions I'm asking here. I can't really have the answer to. Okay. My favorite ink card, Tinkerbell. Never played it in my life. Also against into that 6 ink turn, it's still fine to play Lilo. If I get 2 quests of it, I'm not sad at all. Okay, so soon we're approaching their power cards, like the board clear, like Hades, and then after that also...
Oh, they did have the Aladdin as well. That's crazy.
But I think it would have maybe worked out better for us if they didn't quest, and then we bait them into the trade. Take this
with Cerberus.
Which is, I don't know. I would have liked to show off that line, because it seems niche, right? But I've had it come up quite sometimes. There's the Dragonfire, which we are playing around with the inking the Rockstar Stitch. Are we probably dropping... So now we're going into their 7 ink turn, so we don't want to overcommit, which is a little bit tough to do. So all of these are questing for sure, unless we want to find a song and immediately sing it. But I wouldn't want to cast a whole new world here. But I still need to develop enough that if they just play 7 cost Hades, I'm still threatening that would be a losing situation for them.
Yeah, I think we just want to consider, it's if they board wipe us, can we deploy to the board and then play Surfer Stitch after that in order to sort of get value back?
So I think the line that I'm choosing to do is still drop the Cerberus, because otherwise they just trade Lilo, play Hades, and we're falling behind already, even without them using the board clear. And then if they board clear, we just go double aerial threatening Stitch again.
Yeah, and this play still just, it makes them have it as well, because you are threatening a lot of quests. So the quest here by the Mickey shows we're likely going to run into a Be Prepared. And that's pretty much exactly what we anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Another Tinkerbell. We hit. The lanterns are bad later, so I just put them on the bottom. Seems fine. Probably Beast first or second. And now we have actually a decision to make. Because if they're going to Hades one of these, we might want to have bodies to redevelop into Stitch. Because this will be a little bit of a nutrition-based game, where we will be also, with 7 quests already, we'll hope to bleed them out, but we still need a few resources over the game to do so. I think I'm just passing here, and then we still have the option to surplus Stitch.
I think that makes sense, right? Because if they Hades us, it do that. They spot removal us, it slows us down by a turn. But if we get to the spot where we do draw with Surfer Stitch, we're able to refill up to 2 and we draw 2 cards, it kind of feels like this game is over at that point.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, I think I'm just developing the Tinkerbell. They used 2 Dragonfires. They don't have Hades because they didn't play it there. And they don't have resources for Maleficent either. Still choosing to keep if they do draw and to remove it. I could have... Okay, honestly, I autopiloted a little bit. I could have maybe not quested with Ariel to play around Maui.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's time for the boy.
Yeah, just so powerful coming down with that 4/8 body and then drawing 2 additional cards, which we're drawn to this, the Tinkerbell and the Simba.
So now I have to decide, do I care if they remove my Ariel? I kind of do. Having having Grab Your Swords for 0 can be very strong still. But I also don't want to waste any quest in case I get board wiped again.
Exactly. It kind of feels like we are on the aggressive right now. We're the beatdown, right? And if they decide to trade out this Ariel, we'll clear up their Maleficent, and there's always a risk of running into another Be Prepared anyway. Now that we're on this turn of the game, which it looks like it might be the case. Or it's a Dragonfire.
I think they probably should just trade the Ariel then, because they are just too behind to try to race us. And basically the reason also I quest is if they trade and play something, I'm basically just fine, because they're still, I call it they're bleeding. It's because they are on the clock for us to win the game, and if they don't stop the bleeding, they will not catch up. And so I'm basically fine with them having a good trade for them, because they're still bleeding. So basically just try not to lose to top deck one of the 3 Be Prepared. With 3 quests already, we could threaten lethal as well, but it might not be necessary.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently threatening 2-turn lethal, right? Unless they have an answer. And it's like, if we play another threat, does that speed that up? It does, to the extent that if they do have a spot removal, we'll still be threatening that turn 2 lethal. So I do think that deploying 1 more threat into this board might be correct.
I'm definitely...
I'd probably, yeah.
I'm just doing this. Think that's good enough. So let's say they play Hades, trade 1, and go to 16. I think I'm probably supposed to play Lilo as well, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I would have played just the Lilo in retrospect, because, if they remove the Tinkerbell, then you still have that turn 2 lethal, because Lilo and Ariel represent sort of the same, where it's like the Simba is kind of redundant in the actual clock, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. There's different ways the clock can easily change. So it can be easy to fall into the thinking of very specific clocks that can still change over a couple times.
Mhm. Yeah, especially against removal heavy color pale, which Sapphire Ruby probably has the most spot removal, or it definitely does.
Oh, that's the Paladin. So playing the Simba now that they should have just traded Ariel last time, but now that they didn't trade, the Simba protecting Ariel is actually.
Oh wow! Yeah, look at this. You could board clear them.
I could, but then I waste quite a bit of quest. I guess that's fine.
Because we have to kill the Aladdin, right? It's too much tempo if they attack back into us.
It's not the end of the world, but I think it is better if we do clear it. So they basically have 3 outs here, with the 3 Be Prepareds, and even if they have it, I think we're just winning the game, just by playing every threat we draw.
I think so as well, especially with them on 2 cards, now 3 cards. We're just in a really good spot, threatening lethal, even through removal.
So basically, I think this game kind of showed why I still like Lilo, even if it's not the most amazing card turn 1. It just always threatens efficiently.
Yeah, I think that Grandmaster. Yeah, I think that match was a good example, or a good showcase of us playing around what our opponent could potentially have, and most of the time they did have it right. They made a bit of a blunder with the Aladdin. We were able to clear that up. They had to ink the Aladdin. We played around the Be Prepared, etc. So
yeah,
all right.
The You Have Forgotten Me instead of the Whole New Worlds can make for very swingy games, because if you a Whole New World and that does actually drain them out of resources, that can easily win you the game, while if you a Whole New World for 4 costs and they sing a Whole New World for 0 costs, you can just fall behind on tempo and lose off it. Okay, so we're keeping Stitch again, Simba not necessarily, but without the Lantern I think it's fine to keep, and 1 Ariel is enough, because I won't have 3 resources every time.
Makes sense.
Bigger cards later. Oh,
it kept your hand? That's weird.
But I did click, but maybe it was too late. But I don't think I took all that long.
Well, good thing our hand isn't too bad.
It's still fine.
Okay, another Sapphire deck, wow.
Because basically, our deck isn't as good as it could be, because usually we search for better cards, and then we just ink the rest. But now, instead of having searched for a few more better cards, we will have to ink some of this shit.
Interesting pairing into 2 Sapphire decks. Back to back. Not the most, I would argue probably one. Yeah, this is now Sapphire Amethyst, or Sapphire Purple.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would argue that blue is probably one of the least played colors on ladder.
Oh, I actually have been facing it more and more recently. I don't know. Just something.
I wonder if there was a deck tech came out or something.
So this turn is quite interesting, I think. Beast is a little bit more valuable against the color pairing, but still there's a lot of value in just playing. Okay, so basically the decision is Lantern or Stitch, right? But
yeah,
Simba lets me quest efficiently in theory, but also they're threatening Rafiki, and then I also lose my entire bot, which I still do anyways. But if that's the threat, I might as well develop the Lantern, I think. I think then I'm playing Ariel turn 3, and then turn 4 I'm starting to play Beast. I think I'm actually inking the Simba.
Yeah, and important for some people to watch. I know it's very common practice from Hearthstone, but being able to plan out your turns in advance on your turn is just critical. So sort of utilizing your time effectively, but also perceiving your curve in as optimal as way as you can, right? You can't really ink without thinking about your next 2 to 3 turns.
So basically, I'm giving them the Rafiki if they have it, but I'm also telling them I'm the aggressor in this, and you will have to be the one trading, because ink is quest for me is more valuable than it is for you. So now they traded instead of me, and we're 1 point down. Unlucky. I haven't actually... So I'm still in kind of testing phase, although I've played a lot. I haven't run the math on what number of songs means what hit rates for area.
The hypergeometric math on the songs. I think it might favor... Well, yeah. I mean, maybe you find a way to fit in some Hakuna Matata just as ink hits.
It's
just because
possible. Once I run the math, that I might end up deciding, okay, I want actually some Hakuna Matatas. Oh.
3 beasts in hand.
Guess we have to play one of them. Actually, with this area, they're still...
Heading Rafiki.
Yeah. But they might have played it on their 3 ink turn when I was questing with my Stitch. But the problem is this is actually very valuable that it stays, because maybe I play area next turn and want to immediately sing the song that I draw. I think I'm still inking. So you see me there, like, thinking about all the reasons why I shouldn't quest, but it's just to weigh it against the one quest point, which is a lot. There is Rafiki.
Yeah.
Okay. Still, grab your sword would be very, very good.
Yes, and we're somewhat likely to hit it as well. Okay.
Probably inking this over the beast.
Yep, and then we can dig again. Oof.
That is unfortunate. Probably have to quest and make them double trade into it, which is sad, because what you're usually aiming for is to just clear this for free and then keep questing away. But so if I quest and they double trade, it will remove one of these. But it's not easy for them to remove these at all with purple blue. I think I'm questing.
Yeah, makes sense. So if you had drawn the grab your sword, you would have not quested, correct?
No, I would have just sung the song with the beast.
Oh, I forgot that beast was non-summoning sickness.
Yep.
The Stitch is looking good to refill our hand here.
Yeah, against maybe Grey when they could have Smash, or against Red when they could Dragonfire, maybe I wouldn't have quested, so I get the Stitch off every time, but against Purple Blue I was getting it off almost every time. I think there's a 5-cost action that kills it. I'm still keeping the Beast. Getting the Stitch off a little earlier because of the Lantern. Still no songs to sing.
Yeah.
But we have to keep pressuring. Because even if they can trade trades that look good for them, we're still denying them just drawing a card.
Yeah, it's a really interesting push and pull in Lorcana, and I think it's it's definitely underutilized. This you give them a clear favorable trade on board. I mean, unfortunately, they have their Rafiki, but if the opportunity cost of them clearing with the Queen is quite high,
it's one,
if you're able to maintain tempo.
It's one, they can't draw, and it's two, I get a trade into Rapunzel if the satisfy. There's grab your sword. That's kind of ironic. I search for 12 cards and put them at the bottom, and then I draw the grab your sword. So I'm probably just taking the Rapunzel draw.
Makes sense.
And at this point, I'm only 4 quests ahead, but kind of just seems like an uphill battle for them to get around this card draw, because it's not just card draw, it's always card draw paired with a good questing body. So it's not like the purple song where you just go pay 3 resources, draw 2 cards. I'm actually developing something at the same time, which is the best part about the yellow card draw. This hand is very awkward. So I do want to develop the lantern. And I do want to maybe ink with one of these so I can sing the song and look for something better. Technically the beast isn't great here, but it could easily get good once they do draw a magic mirror or something. So I want to keep the beast, I want to keep the surfer, but I might use the Cerberus and search for a better card. It's just, is the average card I get off this really better than the Cerberus?
I think if we think about how do they win this game, right? Like, how do they start to run away with this game? I think it's them getting access to their own engine, right? And if we're able to deny that by not inking the beast, and I think that's good for us. You know, even if it doesn't become relevant.
Basically, I think it's turning into a nutrition game. So I've decided just having a big 5/6 body against purple blue is better than trying to find something of Be August. Yeah, and now I just have these bodies that, how are you ever going to trade into them? So you can't trade into them, and then your board dies to the board this.
And they're giving you more value potentially if you had another Rapunzel. So like, yeah, we could draw it off of Stitch, and in a game of attrition, it feels like we are very favored right now.
I don't even need to play this. I think just keeping my higher value cards. Also highly doubt I'm trading when I can quest for 2.
Yeah. Which is I think a key note to take if you're watching on that play. I think a lot of people have taken the trade, but you recognizing that you are sort of the beatdown that you quest.
Yeah, plus they're on 1 HP, and if they quest it, they just die to Tinkerbell potentially.
Tinkerbell.
Okay. So now I don't think I need to play around their engine anymore, because even if they get their engine, they will die to our questing. So what I'm going to do instead is just ink this and develop Cerberus and Tinkerbell. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is a bug. I used 11 resources, and I have 11. So.
Yeah, it's a bug. Sometimes it will show, but it just corrects.
It's also when you play a card with Lantern discount and it gets returned to hand, it shows the discount still, but it's no longer discounted. Okay, 2 Elsas.
Yeah, very good.
And let it go. But that let it go also means they missed out on 3 quests, so they're still bleeding.
And we are drawing more cards. I mean, this is just why this deck is so powerful. Is it has so much board presence. It has so much like remove, just on the bodies that it plays, but it also has just an incredible amount of card draw. It's actually insane.
Guess I can bodyguard. Also, there's no board clear, so you can just go all in. If you're not playing against red or gray, just play all your cards. I've never played this game in person, but I've had it come up where I needed 2 rows for my board in the simulator.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, going first, for the first time, we can actually keep the Lilo. I guess I don't really need the Stitch then.
Nice.
Definitely
Lilo
the
Simba.
Captain Hook going first. This looks like a game where we might have to go aggressive and even ink the surface stage.
I think so. With access to a whole new world, I mean, we are going to get more information on what archetype our opponent might be potentially playing. But, you know, if it's something like red,
It's the
Ruby.
red deck.
Okay. So this is, you know, for reference, this is going to be, you know, probably our hardest matchup in the metagame right now. Luck. Very nice that we do have the aggressive start versus it as well.
Well, I would say the blue-red deck also had a very good chance against us, but it's not a deck you see a lot. Like the one we faced in the first game. There's Gaston. So they have very, very good early game, and that's like basically the only early game they play that is actually capable of stopping this questing product. So questing with Simba basically kills Gaston unless they Rafiki. What does raiding accomplish? Raiding accomplishes that maybe we just kill it together with Grab Your Swat. I think I prefer that. Can't really deal with these characters when they're not exerted. It's just they're also not doing anything while they are not exerted.
Oh. Nice. Okay, so he drew the Grab Your Sword. Our opponent is also playing Wardrobe, which I haven't seen in Amethyst deck in a long time.
It's very good curve, for sure. Comparison to ours. So really needed like Ariel, Cinderella, or at least the Beast or Cerberus, any 5. And anything that can sing the song, and we might do fine. If I have to actually use 5 resources on the song, we are not doing so well. Yeah, that's an issue.
Yep.
And we finally get to start questing with Lido again. At least they need to have a Russia or player Russia to start.
Rafiki. Or Maui, you're right.
Shit. Okay. I don't know why I'm saying okay. This is not going well at all. But it's not. Oh no.
That's interesting. So this is an interesting spot. Are you going to play the lantern and effectively wait another turn, or are you going to? Yeah.
And I guess then I wait, then I play this, and then it needs to survive, and then I hold. No, I think I have to.
Yeah.
But I think if we just draw any ink, play Tinkerbell here, then sing Whole New World with Tinkerbell, I think we're okay. But now we're starting to fall quite far behind. The cards are not disappearing. Think Stitch is best. Don't really need to threaten the 3 damage. It's better if I want to quest with it. We need Tinkerbell probably still.
Yeah, and our opponent is, I mean, it's very scary now that we've whole new worlded, and, you know, they're playing. They seem to have, I mean, with their opening hand, it was quite aggressive, but, you know, they could still be a control variant of the list, and, you know.
I think it's just like an anti-aggro control version, so they play more early game. That's what I'm assuming. Which is not good news.
Oh, yeah.
So basically I can play this because I have the spare energy anyways. Spare ink. I'm playing too many different card games. Okay.
Okay.
Probably have to take that for next turn. So we don't take the trade because potentially it dies next turn. Although we might have to take a Rapunzel play instead.
How many cards are in our opponent's deck? 36, 39. So they're not playing like the... yeah, I don't think they're playing like the 67 card deck.
There's a 67
For what it's
card
worth.
deck?
Oh yeah, the Hyper Control lists play 64 to 67 cards.
I think it's bad. I think they should play 60.
Yeah, I think they find themselves... The idea is that they pretty much usually find themselves in a fatigue.
I think you can just play a 60 card list that doesn't go to fatigue. But that's a debate for another day, another video.
Yeah. There's also no max card size or deck size in Lorcana, so technically
It's not even
if you
any
can
max. I thought it was.
no.
Like
I think they will change that rule
they
eventually,
have to
but
change it. Yeah.
I know if you can shuffle the deck, you can play it right now.
If you can shuffle the deck. Probably have to clear as much as we can here. Which is kind of a lot, but then we also need to keep up with their value afterwards. So now I have to decide. I think I'm totally fine questing here. And I might have to play Lilo. Although we will be in a bad spot if they play Be Prepared. The problem is though that this game we are kind of far behind, so we might have to take some more risks than we usually would.
Yeah, it is also pretty likely they have it as well, considering how many cards they played out in the first hand. I mean, we'll see. You know, maybe they don't play it in their list. It's not that good of a card. Very interesting Ruby Amethyst list here, though. A lot of cards that I don't usually see in the deck.
It's like they really... This is the deck you build when you really want to beat aggro, but you don't want to play Steel. That's how they build their deck.
They'll be prepared.
Okay, that's actually fine. Get to Tinkerbell trade and Rapunzel. Only draw 2 though. But to be fair, without Be Prepared, they didn't stop the bleeding.
What do you think is the best card in the game, Moyen, right now?
Give me a second. I think we kill this. That's a broad question. What is the best card in the game? I think we don't have enough value to just ink any of these. So under... Like, how do you define best?
However you define best.
Okay.
But we'll say in a vacuum by itself. Or you can actually just however you define it.
Okay. Because I need to think outside of the box. I've been playing this deck so much, but maybe there's cards in other decks that are also crazy. Because I think Be Prepared is probably the craziest card.
It's really good, yeah. Rapunzel, really good. 1/5 body, draw 2/3 often.
Cerberus is making...
Yeah, friends on the other side. Some people would say friends on the other side.
I think that's crazy. Friends on the other side's not that good. So Surfer Stitch Rapunzel are obviously very strong, but I I think Be Prepared is extremely impactful in how even the games are playing out. I think this entire red deck would not have a shot at beating anything without Be Prepared.
Yeah.
Because it always falls behind, and then it always needs that to reset the board state. Okay. This is an issue though. So this just keeps clearing my shit. Might just trade my Tinkerbell into it, but then I miss the card draw that could be Surfer Stitch. I could just clear it with Grab Your Sword.
Yeah, I was thinking about Grab Your Sword, but I was thinking about on it the next turn, not this turn. I'm not sure. I was thinking about developing Cerberus.
I think I have to draw. Because I kind of need Surfer Stitch here. Maybe Cerberus needs to go, and then I just play Grab Your Sword so I can quest with Rapunzel. While Tinkerbell is still threatening the board. It's not a pretty spot to be in, but we're trying to find the out.
Yeah. Watching games like these really shows me how deceptively simplistic this game is. Because it's actually very, very complicated. Many people would make... there's often a very somewhat subjective line on, should you quest here? Should you take the unoptimal trade? Are you pressuring? What's your role in the matchup, etc.? It's very dynamic.
Yeah, at first I almost didn't want to give the game a try because it seemed like it was lacking complexity, but I think it kind of depends on the deck you're playing. I think both Purple Red and Grey Yellow, which are both considered to be the best decks in the game currently, are actually kind of complex in how the game's played. Okay, they use the Queen, so if we draw Rapunzel, we're probably winning because of Cerberus Rapunzel.
Okay.
Honestly, even with how completely awful this game's going, we kind of have a chance, I think. Just because we're at 10. And they're also at 2 cards when we can clear their engines. Now they're starting to actually pressure for the quest total, though. This trade I probably have to take.
Yep.
What happens if I don't take it? They just... they just start questing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think some of the scariest cards for Ruby Amethyst are things like Be Prepared, things like Rabbit's Pocket Watch. When they land Rabbit's Pocket Watch, you literally always have to be scared of Aladdin.
Yeah, but it can be too slow.
It is, yes, exactly. It is slow. That's the thing is against control, sometimes the game is just lost at some point, but you still have to play it out. And I think that, Pocket Watch contributes to that. It's not a very impactful card, but once it's on the board, it's hard for you to play around. Oh, nice. We get another 2-for-1.
Yeah, but they're questing for 6 each turn now, and we can never kill high HP units just from hand. So now we are bleeding. So they already go to 12, and then they're threatening 18. So if they just play anything that we can kill that quests for 2, we kind of lost the game. So I might not have time to play both of these cards. So as an argument, maybe I have to quest either of them. Oh, either one of them. So this only helps if it actually helps me kill something, which I don't think it does. So I think I'm questing this, and then we need to hope that they don't threaten Leaf here. Because if they do, we have to trade into an Ursula, and then This was
3 of a kind Ursula. It's a lot.
I was playing 4 Ursula when I was in my version of Purple Red.
Yeah, it's definitely hard for us to beat. Oh, okay, yes, GG.
So our only chance to win was they can't threaten for lethal, and then we draw something alongside Cinderella that threatens lethal fast, because we would have gone to 14. And Cinderella was already 16, maybe they could kill 1. But yeah, now it's too much. But am I out of Grandmaster from that?
Yeah, you lost like 100 something, I guess. I didn't know you could go down. That's because I never lose. But you're still rank 4. But yeah, I think that was a good showcase of the deck. I mean, the deck has some even to slightly hard matchups, but the rest of the matchups are so free. Like, they're honestly so free. The deck is so strong right now. And if you're teched for the mirror, like, I think that this is just the best deck to be playing. We saw like the deck showcase a lot of the cards that it's using, right? We saw the early game, get us ahead. We saw a whole new world played. We saw Cerberus do what it does, and I think that Cerberus is probably the most underrated card in this deck right now. We saw Lantern, etc. So
yeah, we saw basically Lantern Cerberus is the biggest difference to what most people are playing, and I think we had a good highlight of that. Plus the whole new world, and I think so. In my experience, so the matchup that we just played is a very close matchup, and it went. I think, and it went terrible that game, and it kind of seemed like we still had a shot. And then the mirror, I think this deck's very, very tailored towards, very good against. And then everything else, I'm very happy playing against.
Yeah. Well, Moyen, I appreciate you doing this deck, tech, and gameplay with me. I mean, you're one of the best card game players, in my opinion, in the world. I mean, you're in the conversation for best Marvel Snap player like in existence right now. You're a Hearthstone Grandmaster. I mean, you're just phenomenal, and you already number 4. Maybe number 1 is too many games, but I mean, already killing it on the leaderboard. So I'm sure we're gonna see more of you as Lorcana sort of ages and matures. I'm actually really excited to see you at an in-person event because, we got to play that land over in the UK. So hopefully I'll get to see you play some paper card games in the future. But yeah, Moyen, thanks so much.
Well, it was a pleasure.